Everything. Good evening. Oh, come on. I know you're tired. One more time. Good evening. Wonderful. Wonderful to see you all here. Welcome. Thank you for being with us. Whether you're new to the field or a veteran Jewish communal professional, you belong here. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Rachel and Shana and the entire SRE staff, and to Isaiah and Nate and the Center for Jewish Belonging staff for co-convening this important summit to allow us to delve into what it looks like to create and sustain spaces of belonging, safety, respect, and equity in our organizations. I seem to have become a resident historian since I left NCJW 6 years ago and rewired, as I happily became a, quote, recovering CEO, a coach for Jewish women in the C-suite, and a strategic advisor to SRE and several other NGOs. I want to take a moment to share with you a snapshot of what our Jewish ecosystem looked like 35 years ago when I first became this thing called a Jewish communal professional. While we should celebrate our successes and some of the positive changes that have emerged since then, we must continue to strive for more change and more inclusivity. We certainly have not made it to the promised land, but I do think we are well on our way, and hopefully it will not take us 40 more years to get there. And for those women leaders in the room, we know that if there had been a woman leading us out of to the promised land, she would have asked for directions. So there I was in 1990, a brand new Jewish communal professional in Boston, hired as the JCRC director, planning to stay for 4 years and go back into a Democratic administration in Massachusetts, but there wasn't one for 17 years. So like many of you, I got hooked. I entered a world that was new to me, not only because I had worked in the secular world and lived in a small town north of Boston, but also because I had grown up unknowingly as a poster child for the services of the Jewish community. When my father died suddenly and left my 34-year-old mother with 3 children under the age of 9, I learned quickly, and sometimes painfully, what it meant to belong and not to belong. And it wasn't until years later, when I started working for the community, that I fully appreciated that the financial and emotional support my family had gotten from, count them, the JCC, Jewish Family and Children's Service, Jewish Vocational Service, Jewish Summer Camp, Jewish Big Brother, Big Sister, wasn't Big Sister then, it was only Jewish Big Brother, was all part of a coordinated system of services for those in need. Yet I was immediately struck upon entering the Jewish organizational world what a role money, gender, and class played, and how few women had been in either lay leadership or executive director roles. In fact, in 1990, there was actually what we called the Wall of Shame in the Federation building, displaying all the pictures of Federation board chairs with only one woman having served in 100 years. I was the only woman around the table of the Federation agency execs and one of a very small group of women CEOs nationwide. It was not until 1998, when my dear friend Ruth Messenger was hired at AJWS, that I finally felt I had found a kindred spirit. That was 8 years later. Ironically, that was the same year that the first class of JOI Fellows arrived in Boston. I was a founding board member of the Jewish Organizing Initiative, now Join for Justice, and remember clearly how impressed I was with this diverse group of women, and some men, who shared my passion for social justice and advancing social change. One of those fellows was a very young woman who came with a vision to work for the full equality of LGBTQ+ Jews and their families in Jewish life. I was honored to be an ally and a supporter of Idit Klein, not only then, but even more so a couple of years later when she became the founding director of Keshet. We worked together to enact the first freedom to marry legislation in the country in 2004, which we lobbied for after the successful Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court decision in 2003. We did it with the full support of the mainstream Jewish community after a robust discussion and majority vote of the JCRC Council, with only 6 dissenting votes from the Orthodox Union, who did not leave the table then or ever. For me, Idit fully embodies the leadership competencies that we will be discussing over the next day and a half, and which are on display throughout the hallways: humility and vulnerability, integrity, empathy, truth-telling, holding multiple truths, leadership practice, and change management. Tonight's program is an opportunity to acknowledge not only Idit's professional leadership, but also Paula Pretlow's visionary lay leadership that has inspired so many of us. And speaking of visionary leadership, I also want to recognize the visionary leadership of Lisa Eisen and Jamie Black, who early on took on leadership roles when many of us knew, yes, please, when many of us knew that Me Too would be We Too. They convened important meetings that led to the founding of SRE back in the beginning of January 2018. I was a founding board member of SRE, and now I'm proud to serve as a senior advisor. I have many more stories to talk about the last 35 years of Jewish communal life. So please feel free to come see me during our breaks if you want to hear more. As many of you know, I love to tell stories. Now it is my pleasure to turn this over to yet another visionary leader to present the award to Paula Pretlow. John Hornstein is the program director of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. John will be followed by Robert Bank, who will present the award to Idit, and who will then be then Idit will be in conversation with Paul Bernstein, the CEO of Prisma. Thank you for being here and the opportunity to be your resident historian. Have a good night.
All right. Thank you so much, Nancy, and also just want to say thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your personal story, which I think helps many of us feel a sense of belonging in the Jewish community. And I can't say it enough. I want to thank again the Center for Jewish Belonging and SRE staff for putting on this absolutely incredible gathering. When I look out at this group of people, it's just such a remarkable group together. So, and you all made that happen. And I know that my job is to say nice things about Paula, which I am incredibly excited to do in just a moment, but I can't not say at least one nice thing about Idit Klein, who is the absolute best in the business and has moved this field forward leaps and bounds over her 25 years and more of leadership. So thank you so much, Idit. You're the best. And the last piece of housekeeping that I will mention is that it has come to my attention that some of you now know that I rap. I have to add a disclaimer that I will not be rapping this evening because for Paula, I know, but But Paula, if you hear this, I want you to be there when I rap for you, which I promise to do someday. So I look forward to that. But I am deeply honored to present the Jewish Belonging Builders Award to Paula Pretlow, who we are lucky to have as board chair of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. Paula couldn't be here today. You'll hear from her in a moment on video. What I thought I would do is, because so many people come up to me and say, Paula is absolutely extraordinary, just the way she presents herself, the way she speaks, the way she shows up, and all of that is 100% true. What I wanted to share are 3 qualities that I see in Paula from our work together, and peel back the curtain a little bit on what it's like to work with Paula and what makes her so extraordinary. The first of those qualities is that Paula is a trailblazer. She doesn't see gaps, she sees possibilities. I think many in this room know that Paula was instrumental in really developing belonging and equity in leadership as an area for the Weinberg Foundation when it didn't exist previously. And we take great pride in that, and I think that includes many of the organizations who are represented in this room. An area that some people don't know about is that Paula has also used her background in investments. She was a senior vice president of a large investment firm to also make sure that the fund managers and the investments in the Weinberg portfolio mirror the community that we serve. And we track the number of people of color and the number of women who are leading the investment portfolios at Weinberg, and that is something that Paula has really spearheaded. Paula is also an incredible thought partner. She really is everything that you hear about in an ideal board member. We talk often, we discuss the work of the portfolio, we trade notes. Oftentimes when we talk, it's not a scheduled call, we can just text and set something up informally. And she always is, constantly talking to leaders in the field, hearing what's out there, and brings her insight and expertise, but also she completely trusts me to do my work. We can brainstorm ideas in real time, and I don't hold back with Paula, and I hope that she doesn't with me. And I think that is really special. We have the freedom to kind of change course on our ideas as we talk, and I just think about psychological safety in board leadership, and I really feel like Paula emulates this. And this brings me to my last point, and I have to say, whoever came up with the language of belonging builder for the award, I love the name, and I feel like this is the 3rd trait, belonging builder. Paula exemplifies this perfectly, and I think it's more than just making sure our leadership is racially diverse and diverse by gender and diverse by all of the different characteristics, but it's a mindset, and this is something that Paula just lives and breathes. She looks you in the eye when she talks to you and makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. When she became our board chair, she flew in for a week to Baltimore just to have breakfast with staff, anyone from executive assistant all the way to our CEO, Rachel, and just to share her story, answer questions, just connect informally with folks. And I think for our staff at Weinberg, why we're in awe of Paula, it's not because of the big moments like when she's on stage interviewing Darren Walker, being accepted to her newest board. It's the small moments of how she values and gets to know each and every person at Weinberg, and this is what I think of when I think of belonging. So it is my honor to present Paula with one of the inaugural Jewish Belonging Awards, and excited to share some remarks from her by video. Thanks.
Thank you, John Hornstein, my friend and dear colleague. Thank you to the SRE Network, to the JFNA Center for Jewish Belonging, and to all of you who are also in this work. I am deeply honored to receive the inaugural Belonging Builder Award. I'm here before you not as someone who was born into Judaism, but as someone who chose Judaism as an adult. My path to Jewish life began with a feeling that I belong with and to the Jewish people, that my soul is and always has been Jewish, and I answered the call of my soul. Simply put, I felt as if I had arrived home. I was welcomed with open arms and invited to participate fully. I know whether we are born Jewish or not, observant or not, younger or older, of different backgrounds, races, or ethnicities, our feelings and experiences of belonging are different and are not always positive. And so I've poured my heart into building bridges, starting in my own community, stretching nationally, and reaching to Israel. I've worked to welcome individuals new to Judaism. I've advocated for pluralistic learning and inclusive leadership. I've partnered on programs that connect North American Jews with our brothers and sisters in Israel that transcend borders and politics. Most of this would not have been possible without the steadfast support of the Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation. The foundation's belief that belonging must be nurtured across every corner of our people, from the unaffiliated to the deeply connected, has fueled innovations in outreach, education, and communal life. Spaces where questions are honored and diversity is celebrated. One of our greatest strengths as a people is the beautiful rainbow of backgrounds, nationalities, and identities that we have among us. I'm honored to receive this award and continue doing my part to welcome, embrace, and celebrate every member of the Jewish community. We must never settle for small circles of us. Instead, we must dare to expand our tent, deepen our relationships, and build communities so welcoming that anyone seeking connection can enter and say, I belong. Again, thank you so much for this award. I am deeply, truly honored. It means the world to me.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Robert Bank, and I am thrilled to be here. I have been incredibly fortunate and privileged to be a member of the advisory board of the Safety, Respect, Equity Network since its beginning. And it's really always remarkable to think of building and belonging and growing, and to be in this room. And I want to thank everyone that I've had the opportunity to meet and grow with during the growth of this incredible organization. And thank you to everyone who works at SRE. Incredible work that has gone into this, the production of this wonderful event. And it's just beautiful to see you all. So to the staff, my colleague board members, and I must, of course, acknowledge Lisa Eisen, who is really the founder of all of this. Thank you, Lisa. So my purpose in being here tonight is to present my friend and colleague Idit Klein with, as we've just heard from John and from Paula and from Nancy, the first inaugural Jewish Belonging Builders Award. I've had the privilege of knowing Idit for many years as a leader, a learner, a colleague on the SRE advisory board, and a passionate activist who has built Keshet from a small local organization into a national organization with a multi-million-dollar budget that is far-reaching and has a track record of making deep impact. But what I think is Idit's most impressive accomplishment is that she turned an organization into a movement for LGBTQ equality and justice in the American Jewish community and beyond. Idit has moved our community to places that were unimaginable not so long ago. And at a time when our country is experiencing serious backlash and backsliding, we must also acknowledge how far we have come. As a matter of fact, it is incredibly important to acknowledge how far we have come. And there is no question that under Idit's leadership, Keshet has enabled our community to move, literally move, from one place of understanding to another. From our Torah, we learn B'Tselem Elohim. All human beings are created in God's image. Easy to say, much harder to do. It's a big deal to change people's attitudes, behaviors, and norms. It's a big deal to create programs where young people feel safe and proud of who they are. It's a big deal to stand tall in the face of an administration that erases identities and dignity. It's a big deal to speak your truth when others are spreading ignorance, hate, and violence. Idit, you have changed countless lives. You are a big deal. So it is my great honor to present you with the Jewish Belonging Builders Award. Idit, Klein. The award Okay, now I need the award. Okay, just hold it, hold it. We're going to get a whole another round of applause here once the award comes. Okay. There you go. You got this, Rachel. The amazing Rachel Gilden. Thank you. Idit. I am honored to present you, Idit Klein, with the Jewish Belonging Builders Award. Okay, let's have a great picture together, an organized picture. Thank you. Okay.
Things are disappearing, things are falling. So as some of you may know, I am in my kind of last Keshet marathon. After 24 years, I'm going to be leaving my position at the end of July. And there have been a number of wonderful moments kind of acknowledging my outgoing leadership, but these are my first tears, Robert. So thank you. And really, Robert, we have been in this work together for a long, long time. So it means the world to be here with you. And Paula, if you are watching, I too will not rep, but I will say that it is an honor, a real honor, to share this inaugural award with you and to receive this award from SRE. I was also on the founding board. They have to get through all of us first, but they'll get to others. I was also on the founding board together with Nancy and Robert, and of course, Lisa, who envisioned it all. And it's just extraordinary to be here today and see what Rachel is starting to build already. So my earliest memories are about belonging. I'm not making this up. It's like I've been waiting my whole life to give this speech. I was 2 years old when my parents and I came to the States from Israel for 3 months Turned out to be a really long 3 months, as we're all still here 50 years later. I remember being in daycare and not wanting to speak English. I don't remember this part, but I'm told that I spent my first month banging on the door and screaming in Hebrew, "I want to go back home, I want to go back to Israel." I don't remember what I thought about Israel, but I do remember the feeling I had when I imagined being there, and that was a feeling of ease and home that I didn't have here. Ease and home. Belonging. That is what each of us deserves to feel somewhere in the world, and certainly in the Jewish community. In my 24 years at Keshet, I have heard so many stories of the opposite from LGBTQ Jews. Stories of being rejected by childhood rabbis, bullied in Hebrew school, stared at in locker rooms or summer camp bunks. And I, together with all of us at Keshet, have played a role in moving thousands of Jewish communities to become communities of belonging for LGBTQ Jews. Now, along the way, some communities get stuck at tolerance, at least for a while. I find that it helps to remind them that no one likes to simply be tolerated in the community that is their home. I think often of Stuart Milk, the nephew of Harvey Milk, Zichrono Livracha. I've heard Stuart say, "I love to be outside in the summertime, even though I don't care for mosquitoes, but I tolerate them." You know where this is going. Gay people are not mosquitoes. Gay people are the butterflies. I'll repeat this line because I think it's so beautiful. He says, "Gay people are the butterflies of the world. We should be celebrated." Last year, around this time, as we entered Pride season, many of us in the LGBTQ Jewish community felt anxious about experiencing anti-Semitism at Pride marches around the country. We didn't feel confident that we would belong. We didn't feel confident that we would be celebrated or even safe. So our staff reached out to Pride organizers in 11 different cities and towns around the country where Keshet was organizing a presence for Pride. We talked about our fears. We talked about what we needed to increase the likelihood that Pride would be safe for queer Jews. We talked about wanting to feel that sense of belonging many of us had experienced for years. And we were relieved and heartened by how receptive the Pride organizers were to our recommendations. We also connected with partner organizations in the LGBTQ rights movement, many of whom were supportive. But one story in particular stands out for me. This was at Miami Pride. Our partners at Equality Florida, the statewide LGBTQ rights organization, were right in front of us in the lineup. And one of their staff members approached us and said, "We know things have been rough for the Jewish community, and we know people might be feeling vulnerable. You can come march with us." We said, "Thank you so much, but we're okay marching on our own." And then they said, "Wonderful, but know that if things heat up, we want you to know and always remember that you can come merge into our contingent at any point, and we will surround you." That is a depth of connection and solidarity that comes from working side by side, from seeing each other's humanity, from refusing to give up on one another, from always going back to building relationships. That is one important route to belonging. Susan Sontag wrote, "All understanding begins with our not accepting the world as it appears." It is so hard to make sense of the awful callousness and chaos of the world right now. But these are a few things I know to be true. We must have each other's backs. We must stay in relationship. And these days, if we can, we must fight for one another. We must never stop fighting for one another. That is how, together, we will reach the day when each and every one of us knows and feels that we truly belong. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And now it's my honor and delight to introduce my colleague and my friend, Paul Bernstein, the CEO of Prisma.
Idit, Mazal Tov for the hugely deserved award, and thank you. This is actually my second opportunity to be part of the Idit Klein Marathon, and so the second time I've heard Idit deliver different parts of her story, and it moves me every time, and I learn from you every time. So really, a profound thank you, and I also want to appreciate what a huge honor it is for me to have an opportunity to say thank you to you in public, and to be part of a conversation to celebrate you, to celebrate someone who inspires us, leads us, who demonstrates endless empathy, and just an incredible, endless passion for seeking justice. So thank you from all of us. I'm grateful to SRE and to the Center for Jewish Belonging for bringing us together and for this wonderful summit, and it's great that we have the opportunity to have a conversation together. So to kick off, you're an entrepreneur who's built a movement. So if we go back to the beginning, I'd love to, if you could share with us, what problem was it that Keshet was created to solve for? How did you identify the needs? How did you choose the first steps to make?
So I would say that, at the outset, I was keenly aware of kind of two sides of a coin. On the one hand, I was aware of the degree to which so many LGBTQ Jews felt disenfranchised from Jewish life, felt isolated within it, which often led to people being closeted, or felt completely alienated and ostracized. And on the other hand, I was aware of the degree to which the mainstream Jewish community didn't think about us. This was made very evident when, in my first several months of starting to build Keshet in 2001 and early 2002, I would go out and meet with people in various Jewish organizations in Boston, where we began as a local organization. And when I would tell them what I was doing for work, they would look at me kind of puzzled and say things like, I didn't know that was a Jewish issue. Or, is that a Jewish organization? Or, this is one of my favorites, gay and lesbian Jews, are there really many of you? So there was the isolation and sense of rejection. On the other hand, the absence of LGBTQ people, LGBTQ Jews from the Jewish communal radar screen. So that was what motivated the beginning. And the way I began, Nancy talked about my training through the then called Jewish Organizing Initiative, now Join for Justice, as a community organizer. I really approached the work as a community organizer. I started meeting one-on-one with lots of people, and I put out the call, are you interested in working for change in Jewish life? Do you want to be an advocate for a more inclusive Jewish community? But then what happened when I would sit down with, I know you're not a nice Jewish gay man, but when I would sit down with a nice Jewish gay man, what do you think he actually wanted? Anybody? Or I don't know why I asked, because I can't hear you. Okay, it would become apparent in about 5 minutes that most of these guys and most of these women and most of the people I met with didn't actually want to be advocates for change, or at least not yet. What they wanted was, did I know a nice Jewish boy for them? Did I know a nice Jewish girl for them? That was how it began. And initially I found this very irritating because this was not my vision for how we were going to achieve change. But thankfully, like a good community organizer, I recognized that I needed to keep the self-interest of my constituents in mind. So what happened? The first committee that I organized for Keshet was a committee to plan what became Keshet Quick Dates, which was the first ever LGBTQ Jewish speed dating event in the country, Christmas Eve 2001. And I will tell you, this isn't, well, I was going to say this isn't the point, but this is the point. There are a couple of people who are still married from that evening. So that's how it began. And so I quickly had to retool my theory of change to think about what people actually needed, which was connection, relationships, friendships, community, being together in Jewishly affirming environments, and to believe that that would lead people to want to work for change in the Jewish world. And indeed, our first trainers, and our Director of Education and Training, Rabbi Micah Buck, is right here, now leading a large department, but our very first trainers who were volunteers came out of Keshet Quick Dates.
Beautiful.
So, Paul, we met first not through Prisma, not in a professional dimension. We met first, really, you came to speak with me as a father. And you came to be someone who has really been impacted quite profoundly, through our connection and through Keshet's work on a personal level, and also professional, and we'll get to professional a bit later. But I wanted to start with hearing what you could share about that personal impact.
Thank you. The simple way of framing it is that Keshet and you, and I think very important to recognize that one of the things you have done is to build a phenomenal team of professionals and volunteers. Mike is one, and many others, and it's collectively what they have all done for us. You transformed our lives for our family. And with the permission of my daughter, I just want to share something of Alex's story and how that came about. Alex came out as trans in 2015, just before she was going to high school. At the time, Alex was very into all things tech, and Lisa and I had this sort of image that Alex would go and build a career in the tech industry and then keep us in the manner to which we wish to become accustomed through her success. But we then faced everything that Alex was trying to deal with in discovering her identity. One of the things that we grappled with at that time is that we are a committed Jewish family. And very quickly, after Alex came out, she felt profoundly disconnected from Jewish life. For example, she would not go to shul with us, even on the high holy days. Earlier on today, Rachel shared Idit's definition of belonging. Belonging is the feeling of being home, and that really captures what Keshet has meant to Alex after she found Keshet, or Keshet found her. I can't remember exactly how it happened, but that home is really meaningful for her. And I want to sort of just emphasize it a bit. In Keshet's mission statement, it talks about how Keshet creates spaces in which all queer Jewish youth feel seen and valued. But the reality is so much more than that in our experience. It is a safe place. It is a place of belonging. It's a place where vulnerable young people seeking their identities can find themselves and grow and truly be empowered. I want to give you one example of how the extraordinary things that Idit's decision-making, as an example of what happened to Alex. About 6 or 7 years ago, Keshet was organizing a gala dinner in New York. And Lynn Schusterman was the honoree, so totally deserved, given everything Lynn has done to support the community. But unfortunately, because of a scheduling conflict, she couldn't be there. And from what I remember of the time, Lynn said, I am good for everything that was going to happen as part of being honored. I will support you. I will give you everything that was there, but please do whatever you want to do with the evening. And of course, what Keshet could have done was honor another donor or honor a board member or whatever, but what they chose to do instead was to honor 3 of the youth who were involved in Keshet programs, and Alex was one of them. All 3 high school students. It was a beautiful way of uplifting and empowering those young people. I know that experience has stayed with them, and all 3 of those young people, they were then high school students, all 3 of them are now Jewish communal professionals, thanks to Keshet. And the culture that Keshet built places youth at the center, and it led to Alex eventually becoming a member of the board of Keshet. Now, there are other organizations that may recognize the importance of bringing clients or the beneficiaries, the people involved in their programs onto their board, but I have never seen an organization do it quite as meaningfully as Keshet has done. It's not just you're there around the table as a young person to learn what it is to be a board member. Alex is fully an integrated, active member on important parts of the board work, including, by the way, a member of the selection committee for Idit's successor and fully active in that. That is an extraordinary thing to do with young people, and the strength that it gave Alex is just incredible. The last thing I would say about Alex is, with going back to that sort of disconnection she felt from Judaism. A little while later, once Alex had got involved in Keshet, Keshet runs Shabbotonim for youth, and she was involved in the Shabbaton, and one day we were in the car and she was on a call planning the Shabbaton, and suddenly Alex is talking about the prayers and the minyan and the what's going to happen, and Lisa and I turned around to her after and said, what's going on? You're the one who's disconnected from Judaism. And said, oh no, I'm the chair of the ritual committee for the Shabbaton. And the end of all of this, thanks to Keshet, thanks to Idit and the whole team, is that Alex isn't going into technology for her career. This fall, she's going to rabbinical school. The last thing I just want to emphasize about this is the impact on parents. I'm sure I'm not alone in this room as the parent of a queer child or the parent of a child who, in discovering their identity, feels alienated or is alienated from their community, and just how hard that is from a parent's point of view and how we grappled with it. I don't know how we would have got through that experience without your support and without the support of others like you who carried us as well as carrying our child. So it is so profound. It connects to what Rabbi Panna was saying earlier on about just keeping families together. I hope we are together because of many things in our family, but one of the reasons we are together is because of you and because of Keshet.
Paul, let me ask you a question. That is so meaningful to hear, Paul. And I distinctly remember Alex saying, I'm never going to shul again, all those years ago, and she might be leading services every week from now on. We will see what kind of rabbi she chooses to become. So I'd love to pivot now, just we've heard a lot about Keshet, but I'd love you to speak to kind of how has that shown up for you within your professional world, within the world of Prisma, where, we've spoken openly before, there have certainly been more challenges.
Yes. So for those who are not familiar, Prisma is the network for Jewish day schools in North America. We work across denominations from non-denominational schools through to centrist Orthodox schools. We are very open. It's the first time that Jewish day schools, since we started Prisma 9 years ago, that Jewish day schools have actually been in that space together. And it's fundamentally built on the idea that we have far more that unites us than separates us. But that doesn't mean we don't have a lot of difference to experience. The couple of things I would say about it. One is, as you can hear from my personal story, I have very strong views on this subject, and I am passionate, and my values are driven around all of this. And of course, my job running a network is to meet schools and school leaders where they are at, and we're not all at the same place. So it's a very important piece for us that we do that, and therefore we have to think very carefully about how we address belonging. One example of it is when SRE first started, it was for me a no-brainer to sign the commitment, to become involved, to share it with our schools. And then people came to me and said, you do realize that the word equity is going to be problematic for certain sections of our community. They may object to it. And part of my job, of course, is to keep our community together. And in the space of LGBTQ inclusion, it's an incredibly difficult subject for so many. And Keshet is there for the schools, and one of the things I've appreciated is how Keshet has evolved the work that you are doing over time to meet the schools and what their needs are at any time. But the challenge is not everyone is there, and sometimes the school leaders who see the queer members of their community feel incredibly constrained from the potential backlash they might get by just saying something or doing something or being active and public in supporting. And it connects back to what Lisa and Eric were talking about, that in a world where we are too prone to shout at each other rather than actually build bridges with each other, how we navigate that space is incredibly difficult for the schools, incredibly difficult for us as a network builder, and even more difficult, of course, as political divisions exacerbate the other divisions that sit there. But at the end of the day, if in my case, we're building a community of day schools, and we are driven by that need to meet people where we're at, we work carefully, we work slowly, we work with, we hope, profound respect, and sometimes that means we can't always tackle the issues in the way we want to, and perhaps with the openness that we would like to, and that's something we have to work with. Let's, the clock has been ticking down as we've been here, so we only have a couple more minutes. I just want to think about, particularly in this time now, as you've evolved, Keshet, you've seen more difficult times and easier times. What advice would you give to others in tackling the difficult times?
I would say two things. I would say, get really clear about your why. Paul and I were speaking earlier, and as I kind of was sharing this, I was remembering the stories that have come back from Gaza of Hirsch Goldberg Polin, Zichrono Livracha, saying to other hostages, quoting Viktor Frankl, and I'm probably not going to get the quote exactly right, but the gist of it is, if as long as you can figure out your why, you can find your way to the how. And thank God, none of us are experiencing what he experienced, but in our own challenges that we face, that may become easier or may become harder in the days ahead, we all need to be clear about our why in order to keep moving with our how. That's one. And secondly, I would say what I always say, which is, know who are the people you can turn to when you get weary. Who are the people you can turn to when you need support, when you need to be reminded of your why or need help with your how. I know I have people, thank God, in this room who I can turn to. So think, who are those people because at some point you will need to turn to them and they will need to turn to you, and that's how you will get through. And what about you, Paul?
I think exactly that, and it comes back to, when we were talking earlier on, you were saying how you could go into so much more of what it is, not just about your living family's history, but the generations before that shape who you are and what you believe. I have the same experience, and not least because my mother is a Holocaust survivor. And always going back to that, there was just I'll just share one more thing before we wrap up that sort of relates to this, which was when I was a student in England in the 80s. I was politically active, but never the one to stand up and speak and make the political speech, until the day when there was debate in our college about what was then known as Section 28, which was a new law in the UK that basically has many parallels in what we're seeing here today, which had things like banning books about LGBT issues and many related subjects. And that was the one time when I couldn't stop myself from getting up in that student union and saying, as the child of a Holocaust survivor, knowing what happened in the Holocaust, knowing what happened to queer people in the Holocaust, and knowing that the burning and the banning of books was one of the first steps in that, this is not okay. And I think that's what drove me at a difficult moment in my college history. And I think as long as we stay grounded in where we're coming from and who we are, then we can all move forward together. Idit, thank you. It is such a pleasure to be able to be part of your marathon. And a pleasure, I'm sure, for everyone else. Thank you so much.
And Paul, thank you so much.
Okay.